Welcome to This Week in Real Estate with Jonathan Harmon. Listen in as him and other members of the J Harmon Home Team speak about all things real estate with local experts here in the Middle Tennessee area. Be sure to check out jharmonhometeam.com for more information and how to get in touch with our amazing team. Welcome to the show.
And good morning, everybody. It's This Week in Real Estate with Jonathan Harmon, powered of the J Harmon Home Team, powered by Keller Williams. I haven't finished my first cup of coffee yet, Trent, so I apologize for that little flub there. But before we get rolling, we've got a fantastic guest today, and I can't wait to speak with him. I always love chatting with Bernard wherever we happen to bump into each other, frequently at chamber events and very frequently with a beverage of choice in hand. So, but we always manage to steer the conversation back to at least somewhat real estate. So that's good.
It always comes back to that. That's I guess it's kind of embedded in us at this point.
You know, there's always like talk about work-life balance and all this stuff. And every time I hear that, I'm just like, yeah, that's funny.
That's cute.
It's cute.
That's
Yeah.
cute.
That's cute. Yeah. This is a job. Bernard, by the way, is with PMI Professionals, Property Management, Inc. And so he does kind of a different side of real estate. He does some of the same stuff that I do, but also integrates some other things into his repertoire, so to speak. And, this is a job where like you never really fully clock out. And in order to do that, you have to go somewhere where your cell phone just doesn't work.
That's the only way to do it.
And even then, it's like in your brain, you're going, I wonder what fire's happening right now.
It is very hard to check out. That's one thing that I learned very early. They started talking about the work-life balance in real estate. But, I actually love real estate, though.
I do.
I love property. I love the business. I love the industry. I love the various ways that you can make income, invest. There's so much about it that I love that it's hard to check out.
It is.
I enjoy the conversation. I enjoy watching it on TV. I enjoy listening to podcasts. So.
I'm with you, and you've been in the business a little bit longer than I have, but even now, there are moments where something pops up, some topic comes up, somebody at a party says something, and I'm like, what? Yeah, like a prairie dog or something, right?
It's the real estate radar. You can hear it.
Yeah, I know it, and I get excited. I get excited to talk about it. I get excited to share with other people, and sometimes, and this isn't like an arrogant thing, but I get excited to kind of, I guess you can say it this way, correct wrong thinking, right? Like you hear, there's so much speculation and, well, this is why it's like, it's not exactly accurate.
I think you mentioned earlier that our conversation seemed to come back to real estate. I think, the education, educating others is one thing that we enjoy doing. That's kind of why you work with buyers and sellers or even investors or, the education of it, walking them through the process to do it over and over again. You kind of enjoy that.
Yeah.
But I think with guys like us, we also love learning about it. So
Absolutely.
We're so engulfed in it. Like I said, reading, listening to the podcasts, the housing market will come on CNBC and I'm shushing everybody in the room, turning up the TV and everyone like, what are you doing, man? We're playing cards. Like, so anyway, I can't even be on vacation, so it's one of those things where it's just like, we're so into it that I believe that's what draws us to that.
Well, I can't even count how many times I've called you and I'm like, hey man, I got this. Does this make any sense? Or what do you guys do about this? Cause property management specifically, that is a whole, it almost should require a separate license. Let's really be honest about it. Right. It is not the same skill set as helping a buyer, helping a seller. You do some of that as well, and you should, right? But the flip side of that, the portfolio management and the, my goodness, I don't like, I have no desire to ever get into that side of it. It's just not, it's exciting to me to generate income that way, but the management side of it is not exciting to me.
And thankfully there are a lot of guys like you that keeps us in business. because there are quite a few people that self-manage as well, and it's funny because some of them will do that for a while,
and then they're like,
we're done with that. Some people actually enjoy it, but I do tell people you kind of have to have I don't know if it's the heart or the stomach. It's not the brain, because if you think it through, then you probably wouldn't do it. But you do. Again, it comes back to just loving what you do. It is a different side of the business, but I'm more connected to the investing side than I am the working with buyers and sellers. Even the buyers and sellers I work with are usually investors.
Right.
If I'm doing a real estate transaction, it's usually an investor selling a rental property, or somebody buying one, things like that. So it is a different process, but it just like I said, the various ways that you can generate income and that you can build wealth through real estate just really excites me. And it comes back to kind of what you were saying, the miseducation of a lot of people, how hard they think it is, or there's so many ways to get into it.
Well, I want to throw one out there for you. And then after this little section, I want to make sure that we go back to Mr. Bryan Nale. So we're going to talk about him for a second. But one of the things that I think is a big misconception for a lot of people that work more exclusively on the side that I work on, is that, well, commercial real estate or investing, or buying and selling rental property, all that, it's a colder process. There's not as much emotion attached to it, and I don't think that's true. I mean, you've got emotional beings, humans involved, so there's going to be emotion. And what's more emotional than managing your nest egg, than managing your retirement, managing your legacy for your heirs and all of that kind of stuff.
Well, keep in mind too, who we work with is not a diehard investor. They didn't wake up and say, I want to own 10 or 15 rental properties. We actually work with a lot of people who are former clients of realtors like yourself, who, they bought a property that they're living in, maybe as a single person, or maybe as a newlywed couple, a townhome, or a nice single family home. Used to be Cason Lane was the area around here that everybody, that was kind of the starter home. And then you moved up to somewhere else. But, a lot of those people, either the bug hits them at some point, hey, maybe we keep this as a rental property or something like that. Maybe we dab into it, see what we like, see what we think. Maybe the market shifted and they decided, as I'm having a lot of conversations now with people who they have a 3% interest rate on their house
and a ton of equity,
but they got another job in another city or another state,
or they had another baby,
or they had a life happens, an in-law, a parent needs to move in, think life happens, we can plan out everything we want, but life is going to happen to us. So they need to make a move, but they just don't want to let go of that 3% interest rate, or that $250,000 in equity that they've gotten in the last 3 years.
Right. By not even paying their mortgage down, just by simply owning the property.
Simply owning property. So, so I have a lot of those conversations as well. So, in that case, that's where I get some phone calls from yourself, or, whether it's a tenant or whether it's a client that wants to rent their property out. Say, hey, Bernard, they want to have this conversation. A lot of conversation I've had recently is people who are just unsure. They want to look into it. What would it look like? How much rent could I get? Do I want to do this? Because maybe it sat on the market for 3 weeks instead of the 3 days that it has been in the past
3 hours.
Sometimes. Yeah. Right. Exactly. So, a lot of it just comes to, like you said, you're dealing with emotional beings. So that's what I mean. Everybody's not just a diehard investor. Some people are just,
well, even your diehard investors. Home. I mean, there's a lot riding on those things, and it is, I mean, it's home, no matter how you slice it, the concept of home is an emotional situation, right?
And the thing is, I mean, these things, you're paying money for them, sometimes a lot of money. You're spending money on them. You want them well taken care of. So yeah, it can be emotional. I know guys who they look at it's just property. It's no big deal. Sure. It's just a business. But let's be honest.
They still don't like to lose money.
They don't want to lose money. And it's a different type of emotion. Yeah. There's an emotion to it, but there's a different type of emotion.
Right.
Whether it's your personal home or whether it's your investment home, or like I just described, your personal home that you're deciding to rent out to someone else because, your kids, your first 2 kids may have grown up to 8 or 10 years old in that property, and now you're going to let somebody else move in, and people feel some kind of way. Well, can you make sure they don't do this and do that? Well, we have rules that we have to follow as well, so little things like that. So it is a balancing act, but it's a beautiful balancing act. I deal with so many different personalities and so many people. Not all good, but some people probably say the same thing about me. So
I can't imagine that. So real quick, we're going to bounce it over. My friend Bryan Nale, your friend Bryan Nale, with Iberia Mortgage. That is not correct. Holy cow, I went totally wrong. So sorry, Bryan. With Primis Mortgage, and Bryan is my go-to lender. And man, that's like 2 companies ago. What the heck? Anyway, that's why I love live, because we don't get to edit that in post. But anyway, with Primis Mortgage, Bryan is the man. He hasn't changed, even if his company has. And he is my favorite lender. He does such a good job. He can advise on all kinds of things. If you want to keep that house and rent it, he can help you figure out the best way to go about doing that to buy the second one. So let's hear from Bryan.
Hey, my name is Bryan Nale. I'm a mortgage loan officer with Primis Bank Mortgage. I want to tell you that I absolutely love being a member of the Spread the Positive Network. It's such a great mission and helps bring so much positivity to our community. It's truly a pleasure to be part of. There are a lot of ways to navigate financing a home, and in markets like this, having the advice of a trusted local professional is key to making sure you get the right advice for your specific circumstances. Whether you're interested in the purchase of a new home, second home, or have a need for a refinance, I'd love to earn your trust. If I can help you nail your mortgage, call me at 615-243-3976 or visit nailyourmortgage.com.
Primis Mortgage is a subsidiary of Primis Bank, a member FDIC, equal housing opportunity. As always, all loans are subject to approval. Primis Mortgage, NMLS number 1894879.
Okay. Thanks, Bryan. We love you, man. And we love all that you do for helping spread the positive and being part of our community here. All right, Bernard, let's dive in. So you got licensed in
2002.
2002. So you rode that first wave up, then you rode the crash down, and then you did the little flat part, and then you rode the next wave up, and now we're here.
Yeah, a little interesting background about me. I had a banking background before I got in real estate. So in 2012, I actually got into mortgages. Oddly enough, the company that you mentioned at first was my former company. Our good friend Bryan Nale took my office.
That's awesome.
So just a quick.
I forgot that you were in lending.
I was in lending for about 5 or 6 years. It was something real estate. I was still licensed, but I didn't practice real estate, of course. But it was something that was a good learning experience for me. I can't say I was a great mortgage lender, but I can't say I was a great real estate agent when I did that either. But I can't say I was a great mortgage lender. There was a lot of regulations, and I didn't do well with that. That MRI book authority that they used to have. I didn't do well with that. So I clashed with my underwriter a lot, but she taught me so much. But what it helped me do, though, is it helped me understand both sides of the industry.
For sure.
And especially dealing with investors and dealing with the investing side, even dealing with clients who have purchased their home on an FHA or a VA loan that are going to turn it into a rental property.
There's rules.
There's rules.
THJ doesn't like it at all.
THJ will not allow it.
Right.
And if they find out, you're in trouble.
Yes, you are. And they will call the mortgage due. I've sold a house for somebody because of that.
Yes. They will call it due immediately, and they will not be, and they will talk to you like they're mad.
Yeah.
They will talk to you like a
and they check.
Parent. They do.
Yeah.
And that's one thing about it. So little things like that has really kind of helped me on the overall investing and even property management side. My job with the management company is business development. So I pretty much talk to landlords and investors on a daily basis. That's my job. And so having those conversations, I believe, helps out a lot, whether they're a client of ours or not. Being able to advise and being able to speak on those things, even on the finance side. I've helped several of our clients, secure refinances on property that they weren't quite sure they'd be able to get, or secure funding to purchase a new property, just from having those relationships.
That's it. And that's no matter what part of the business you're in, the relationships make the difference. I mean, and the thing is, a good agent, whether it's on the quote normal residential side, on the commercial side, on the property management side, a good agent's going to spend time cultivating the relationships that then turn around and help their clients, right? So you're prospecting to clients, sure, that's your job, but you're also, I guess you call it prospecting, to those service providers that are going to make you more valuable to the people that you're prospecting.
Well, you mentioned earlier, I see you at a lot of community events, whether it's something for MTAR or for the Chamber of Commerce, or just a community event. You're very involved, MTSU, things like that. So that's where those relationships are built. That's where, right. You go around, you're in the community, you're meeting other service providers just like ourselves. And, you build those relationships. And, Murfreesboro has always been a great dynamic, an interesting dynamic. I was born and raised here. And so.
Which high school did you go to?
I graduated from Oakland High School.
Okay. OHS. I don't hate you as much as Riverdale.
The Patriots. Exactly. Yeah. It was now I'm going to age myself. There were only 2 high schools then.
That's right.
It was just Oakland and Riverdale.
Well, there were 4 in the county.
4 in the county.
Plus Eagleville, if you want to count them.
Yeah. Just 2 in Murfreesboro, not counting the private schools.
Right.
The Christian schools there. But
everybody hated Riverdale though when we were there.
Well, they were winning all the football games. So.
Exactly. I'm a Smyrna grad, so yeah.
Now I went to my first 3 years. I went to Smyrna. That's why I phrase it that way.
Okay.
I went to Smyrna for 3 years, but I graduated from Oakland.
Man, I knew there was a reason I liked you.
Yeah. There we go. So yeah, I have the background there as well. And playing sports, of course, very competitive around here.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, Murfreesboro's always had that great dynamic. The real estate community has been kind of small, especially early on when I got in.
Mm-hmm.
Once you started meeting people knew you, and your reputation as how you did deals was a big deal.
Yeah, it's 100%.
And I believe it still is to an extent. We've got a lot more national home builders now. Back then it was a lot of local home builders.
Mm-hmm.
So those relationships were strong, needed to be strong as well. But having the relationships with the people in your industry, honestly, the way I was trained was half the battle. Just
at least, yeah,
if not more. Yeah, it was just having good relationships with your colleagues. Yes, you got to prospect. Yes, you got to go get listings. List and live was always the motto that they taught us, and things like that.
Listers or lasters.
Things like that. But let's be honest, though, you want that deal to close, and you want to be able to work with that other agent on the other side.
That's right,
and that's how you build those relationships.
I 100% agree. So, when did you join? So. PMI Professionals, Scott Abernathy is your
franchise. He owns the franchise.
Is he your broker as well?
Our broker is actually Nathan Beach.
Oh, okay.
He used to be at Keller Williams in Mount Juliet some years ago.
Yep. And, I've met Nathan before.
Yeah.
So Scott opened up PMI Professionals. Gosh.
He joined the PMI franchise. I always get this wrong. 6 or 7 years
ago. I was going to say 8, but
maybe,
somewhere
so
around there.
Let's say 6 to 8 years ago. I've been with Scott. My 4th. I'll have my 4-year anniversary at the beginning of September.
Really? It's only 4 years.
Only 4 years that I've actually worked with Scott. Now, Scott and I have been friends since 2002. Since I started in real estate, we were both at Coldwell Banker together.
Mm-hmm.
But been working with him for about 4 years. But it feels like forever because it's been such a natural fit. And the job that I do, I tell everybody it's like a dream position because I talk to investors and I talk to them all day. I do property management. I love investing. I love this whole process. So it's worked out well.
So in your experience thus far, who makes, how do I say this? Who makes a good landlord? Like who is it? Let's go this route. Who's your ideal client?
Our ideal client is somebody who really just wants to provide a good experience for everybody. And because that's what we're trying to do. We love a landlord who's just kind of turning everything over to us. I guess everybody kind of does. Like, hey, here's the key. Handle things. Send me my check.
Send me a check.
Send me my check every month. See
you later.
The misconception with a lot of landlords, I feel like, is they believe that property management companies are out to nickel and dime on a lot of different things, and it just doesn't work like that. I mean, when they talk about maintenance, that's always a big topic. Well, are you going to go fix certain things? We're not sending out maintenance techs for $100 an hour for a doorknob that's loose on a bedroom. Little things like that. You don't nickel and dime your owners. We're property owners as well. We're landlords as well. Scott, Nathan, myself, we all own property. So we're looking at it from the lens of them, because if you look at property management, the landlord is our client, not the tenant. The tenant's more of the customer.
Right.
Until we get them to the lease, they're kind of a client, but the landlord's more of our client. We have a long-standing agreement with them. And so we are looking to make sure that we're managing their asset to the best of the ability. Like I tell people, there's only two basics really to property management that people want: pay me my money on time and don't tear up my house. And it's our job to hopefully provide that. And that's the goal. So the ideal landlord understands that and is really just kind of looking for that. Maintenance is going to happen. A house is a living, breathing thing. And if you're going to own it for any amount of time, you need to look for that. The other part of the ideal landlord would be somebody who understands that there are going to be expenses. Maybe not this year, maybe not next year.
I replaced an HVAC on one of mine 2 weeks ago.
Exactly.
It sucked.
It sucks. It does. It sucks. But the thing is you understand that this is a marathon and not a sprint. And these things pay off in the long run. The goal here is, we spoke earlier, we're both in our 40s now. The goal here is that when we're in our 60s.
I'm less in my 40s, by the way.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, just want to make sure that's clear to everybody that's watching.
Yeah, that's a little bit less. But no, so we don't want to be running around for the hustle for the next 20 years of our lives.
That's right.
We're building something here. So a landlord that truly understands that it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. There are going to be expenses, and it's our job to help mitigate that for them.
Yeah.
And
who makes a bad landlord then?
That's tough to say.
Oh, come on, man. Don't be diplomatic now.
I have to be a little bit politically correct. It's 2023 and as most people know.
Let me rephrase it.
No.
who should not become a landlord? Like give me a scenario where you need to just sell the house.
The biggest thing about being a landlord is understand that it is still a risk that you're taking. Yes, you are going to have some expenses in there.
You're going to have months without rent.
Yes, you are going to have some vacancy. That was my name. You are going to have some vacancy in there. Yes, you are going to have to do some maintenance stuff that you never even thought of in your life. That certain things that you just don't think of.
How did they even do that?
How did that even happen? How did that even? So little things like that. So, but if you don't have savings that you can apply, that you can earmark just for the property, you might want to just go ahead and sell. If you don't, and when I say savings, everybody thinks, oh, well, I don't have $15,000 in cash. Well, do you have a line of credit on your current property, or do you have one on the rental property that you have? Do you have maybe a credit card that has a $10,000 limit that you cannot use for anything else?
That's right. It's got to
just be sitting in a drawer, waiting.
Freeze it in an ice block.
Freeze it in an ice block until the HVAC goes out, as you spoke of a couple of weeks ago, until that happens. Because even if it's a brand new house, yes, it's not going to happen immediately, but in a few years, something's going to happen.
Yeah.
A water heater is going to go out, $1,200, $1,500, gone, just like that.
If it didn't damage the floors.
If it didn't cause water damage to the floors, little things like that an HVAC, everybody thinks the insurance company fixes all roofs. They don't. So,
nope.
But sometimes a roof is leaking and you still have to get it fixed. Little things like that. And just the regular, I tell people sometimes preventative maintenance, upkeep, love landlords who like to do things like that, regular servicing of the HVAC system, just a pest control, little things. So it's really just about understanding that we're not adversaries. As a landlord and a management company, we are working together. Even with the tenants, we're trying to provide a good experience for the tenants. So, sometimes,
because ultimately you win if you have longer term tenants that take care of a house.
Everybody wins. The longer term, and if you're a landlord, the longer term your tenant, you're in good shape. And that's what you want. You want somebody again who's gonna treat it like their own, who is going to move in there and treat it like their own.
Agree. All right. So going from that route, why is it beneficial for someone to use you guys as opposed to just self-managing?
Well, most of the time, the reason that people call me is to make sure that they're staying within the rules. Fair housing is a big deal in this country, and they do monitor those things. And Oddly enough, even in this county and this city, we have had some issues.
What are some ways that people fall off the rails? Because I mean, I doubt that there's people that are. I doubt that there's very many people. Let's put it that way, that are just overtly violating fair housing.
No, I think a lot of people, it's about knowing what it is. We have a Landlord Tenant Act here in the state of Tennessee that, that's under that. You have fair housing, which is more of a national thing. So it's really just about, for instance, our screening process. You have to treat everyone the same. Meaning we had a landlord that self-manages that was telling us a story about a tenant who called in and was asking about, I believe it was a pit bull that was going to be their ESA dog, so to speak, their
emotional
support animal. Mm-hmm. And so they said the way that they tried to get out of that was, oh, well, let me call my attorney and let me call my insurance agent and see if that's okay. Nothing necessarily wrong with that if you do that for every single applicant, but you can't just single out one applicant. Mm-hmm. So now granted, that was a random thing that they kind of did, but that's one of those things that as a self-managing landlord, you wouldn't necessarily think of as being wrong. You're protecting yourself, you're protecting your property, because true, your insurance agent's probably going to say, no pit bulls, and your attorney's probably going to say the same thing. No pit bulls. But there are other ways of mitigating that. We use a screening service that does all of that. But that screening service is for everybody, whether you have a pet or not. So little things like that.
So the emotional support animal thing, that those service animals just in general, right? That has become a very hot topic in all kinds of places, whether it's airlines and rentals and short-term rental, and I mean all kinds of things. You can't even ask a lot of the questions that legitimately probably should be asked, and then you're like, come on, really? Is that really what that is? Or did you get somebody to sign off? But you can't ask that.
Well, and again, this is another reason using companies like ours, because we make everybody go through the exact same process.
Mm-hmm. And that's the key.
People who have an emotional support animal or truly have a service animal, they have all their paperwork.
Yeah.
They have all the documents.
And they
who truly need that, who truly have that.
Absolutely should let them.
And they do not mind going through that process. They do not mind providing whatever documents needed. But if you're sending them through a screening service that's making them do all of this, the people who are trying to defraud you, most of the time they just throw their hands up. Yep. Because it's more work for them. Now, granted, some people will get on the internet and print out all kinds of things like that. So you have to be aware of that. We actually had a landlord that we were going to manage for at one point, but he had some tenants that he wanted us to go ahead and screen for him. He had already talked to them. Long story short, they had fake pay stubs. He was going to basically put them in there. They had fake pay stubs. Now we ended up not actually continuing to manage the property, so which was no big deal. But it was just one of those things that at that moment he almost had somebody fraudulent that was in there.
And then if your lease isn't done correctly, you get them in, and you're gonna have a devil of a time.
It's tough to get them out.
Mm-hmm.
And so the thing is a lot of things don't come up until something goes horribly wrong.
Yeah.
And sometimes, the lease that you have may or may not be within the guidelines that you can have. Not that you can't put it in that lease, but if it ever goes to a judge, that judge is going to look at it and say, yeah, you can't do that. Mm-hmm. And so you may or may not, it's just going to kind of depend on what happens there. So the legalities of it, that's a big reason that people come to us and people hire us.
It's protection. It's insurance.
It's protection. It's insurance. It's making sure that everything is on the up and up. And quite honestly, we have a lot of people who they just don't want to fool with it.
Yeah.
They don't want to deal with it, screening people and putting them in their property and calling for vendors and getting maintenance out there and things like that. Maintenance is a big thing. I've had landlords just tell me, hey, you guys have the relationships.
Yeah.
I don't have them, and I don't want to go make them. I'd rather.
Or I'm working my regular job that's demanding. We either accidentally or purposely got this property for all the reasons that we've already talked about, and it's not my specialty to do this, right?
And some people just go in with that plan. They're like, I'm gonna buy them. I'm gonna give me a management company, and that's it. I'm gonna get a management company in there. Y'all handle it.
I'll go visit it again in 15 years.
I just want to put my 20% down, or I just want to go build my wealth. However I'm doing it, I just want to continue to buy property and just turn them over to you.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Let's see here. What about short-term rentals? You guys, that's becoming bigger and bigger and bigger every day. Is that something that you guys touch?
We do. We do. We manage short-term rentals. We actually manage short-term rentals in a couple of other cities. We have one in Knoxville. We have one in Evansville. So we have a few around here. So yeah.
What's your thoughts on that? You're very blank right now with that look.
No.
It's a whole other animal too, isn't it?
Short-term rental is definitely a whole different beast. That's actually a different department, so I don't do as much on the operation side of short-term rental. I help out a little bit on the residential side. And even the HOA side, but not as much on the short-term rental. Nathan, our broker, he kind of oversees that, and he has an assistant that does a lot of the admin work, because the admin work would be brutal if he didn't have some help doing that. So, but it is a different beast. I guess I had one before it was cool, in Nashville. I wasn't.
You're an Airbnb hipster.
Yeah, but I shut mine down before it got even cooler. But I don't really regret that. It wasn't my thing at the time.
Sure.
Now, granted, there wasn't a lot of management companies you could turn it over to at that time either. But it is a different play. It is a little bit more of a hospitality play. We're getting a lot of traction on midterm rentals as well.
Okay. So like 1 month plus?
30 days plus rentals. People coming in for 2 or 3 months. I know we've got a couple in Nashville that are very successful. I know we have one here that somebody's doing a midterm rental on. I know you and I have had that conversation before about various reasons, just exploring the city, just to see if they want to live here.
Travel nurses and students
was always the big thing. Yeah, that was a travel nurses was. I think a lot of people set up short-term rental properties because of the catchphrase travel nurses. I really do. COVID changed a lot, because I know a couple of travel nurses myself, and they were making
ridiculous
money.
money.
Yeah, I mean, I literally know a couple that were making $400,000 in that year.
Plus expenses.
Yeah, well, that was including it, because their normal job is a $200,000 a year job. So when you add on the per diems and the expenses and everything they were getting $400,000 a year by the time it was all said and done. And so I think a lot of people set up some short-term rentals based on that, because we hear that a lot. I hear that especially when I'm talking to.
I've rented several of mine. I have 3, and I've rented some of those to them, and it's cooled. It's not as prevalent as it was, but they're still here.
They're still traveling. Funny thing, one of the properties that we did manage at one point while all that was going on was a lady out of the West Coast who that was her job, was placing travel nurses. And she actually told me about, I guess it was about 8 months or a year ago. She said, yeah, all those extra per diems are gone. She said everybody's just making their regular pay now. They're still traveling.
Right.
But she said all those extra per diems are gone. Just meaning people are a little bit more selective about the housing that they're picking, because they were throwing $3,000-$4,000 a month at a house. No big deal.
Crazy.
Sure, let's run it. Charge it to the hospital, charge it to the company, put it on the credit card.
Right.
So, but there's a lot of underlying travel too. I mean, as you know, here you can't throw a rock without hitting a kid in a baseball or soccer uniform.
Don't throw rocks at kids.
Don't throw. Yeah, you can't throw it. Yeah, you can't throw rocks at kids. So, but no, you see them all over the place. You see a lot of business travel around here.
Well, and that's so with my short-term rentals. That's a lot of folks are like, oh yeah, I bet MTSU, because mine are all 3 downtown. I bet MTSU supports that, and yes, we get a decent amount of traffic from MTSU, but man, there's so much more happening. It's probably maybe 15% of the people that come through are somehow tied back to the university, but the vast majority is other stuff. Maybe they want a landing base that's not in downtown Nashville, but they want to kind of explore the greater region. Maybe it's a concert, maybe it's a family reunion, maybe it's something with the battlefield, maybe it's it's crazy how many different things are happening here that people come here for.
And that's the underlying thing that I think people miss. You've been hearing a lot of headlines though about Airbnbs and short-term rentals and the decline of them. So I'm interested to see how that all shakes out. I would disagree on the decline, especially some of the numbers they're throwing out, 40 and 50% in Nashville,
Yeah,
Middle
it's not.
Tennessee. No, I'm not buying any of that. I don't see that. I have had talks with a lot of short-term rental owners. I think what people are seeing more of is it's either less booking dates at, still the fairly same rate, or a little bit, the same amount of booking dates, but at a lesser rate than it was a year ago.
That is my situation for sure. There have been more dates. You can go in and do discount specials or whatever. I've had more of that than I did last year.
Right.
But as far as the number of bookings, that hasn't. I mean, I stay booked on all of mine.
It's still a location play. Everything's still, if you've got it in the right location, in the right tourism areas, things like that, you're still going to do well.
For sure. Yeah, 100%. All right. So last topic I want to talk about, you had mentioned about some new grants that were coming up. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. When before we started here, we kind of had an off-air conversation a little bit about, I have a lot of colleagues doing affordable housing, and a lot of this is development in Nashville. And some of this is on much larger scale. When you start talking about the Amazon money, there are guys doing apartments getting $30 and $40 million. In some things like that. But there are some smaller entities that are nonprofits that different companies have sent some funds to. So I know enterprise funding is one of them, things like that. Some of the CDFIs, which are community development financial institutions. I had to recall that. That's why I had to say that really slow just to make sure what it is. But a lot of them have some programs and things like that. Pathways Lending in Nashville is one that where you can develop or purchase some property that would be considered affordable housing. Now, that's always the catchphrase.
Leads us to the question, right?
That's what is affordable housing.
Yeah.
And the thing is that's going to be different in every municipality right now. I know, and these are numbers from a year ago. I haven't really looked at them as closely, but Nashville was $1,500-$1,600 a month in rental was considered affordable.
Wow.
So it just kind of depends on the municipality that you're in. They have all those what is it, formulas that they use, 80% of median income and 120% of all this other AMI. There's so many different formulas. So it depends on who you ask. It depends on
which grant
you're going for,
sure.
Which company, whether it's a bank, whether it's a nonprofit. But I do want to throw that out there just because it is becoming a big thing. And as far as landlords and investors, it could be a way to pick up some property in a market that is a little bit tougher to pick up property, with interest rates being higher, prices being higher.
So the grants are meant to subsidize the acquisition and rehab of a property but the trade-off is that you're going to essentially cap where your rent is based on whatever the multiplier is for that particular.
Correct. And there's several different ways to do it. I have a friend of mine who's looking at building some townhomes in actually, I believe in Spring Hill. But 12 of these are, I believe it's about 15 or 18, but about 12 of them are actually going to be sold to a nonprofit to sell to people for affordable housing. And he's got some lower, I want to say low interest loans is the route he's going to get that. So it's not so much a grant, but it's a low interest development loan.
Take some of the risk away from him. And then, they've already pretty much got a contract in place for 10 or 12 of them to be sold. So I say all that to say there are a lot of different creative programs out there. If there's something that if you have a passion for it, then you can figure out a way to do it. We have one of our landlords that we manage for, and he does a lot of things with Journey Home. He has a couple of his properties. We had one we were getting ready to rent, and he said, take it off the market. I'm gonna let Journey Home use it. Little things like that. And it's a passion for him. He owns probably 20 properties. So he's got a few, 3 or 4 of them that he does that with. The rest of them are at market value. It balances out. It works out for everyone. So I do like to throw those things in there because it is a big thing right now. We are seeing rent stabilize a little bit, but rents are still expensive. They are.
Well,
I mean, $1,500 is considered affordable housing. I mean, my goodness,
and that was a year ago.
Yeah.
So it's probably $1,750 now or something.
Yeah.
I haven't. Don't quote me on that. I have no direct numbers, but we've talked about the real estate market and how things are. I mean, we saw houses that sold for $100,000 here when we first got into real estate that are $400,000 houses now. And let's be honest, we didn't think we were going to see those houses become $400,000 plus houses.
And we still look at it and go, that's really not.
No, but these were the properties we bought from rentals back then. You know, that were the starter homes that you know, when you first got out of college, you did go.
Don't you wish you had $1 million in 2009 and bought like literally everything in Lake Forest?
You know, I wish I had.
That was me.
I would have bought everything. I probably would have went East Nashville and bought a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, just for the tear downs but I would have kept them. I wouldn't have sold them.
Yeah. No, I would have bought Lake Forest.
Lake Forest is a great man. Honestly, first house I ever bought was in Cason Lane.
Yeah.
I wish I'd have bought the whole street.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was in late 90s.
For sure. And right when it was getting going.
Right when it was getting going. And you know, and it was an investment property. And so it was one of those things where, looking back, we all should have just went broke buying property. Just whenever we had some money, we should have just bought another property.
The monopoly approach.
The monopoly approach. We should just bought
land on it, buy it. Yes.
Land on it, buy it.
That's good stuff. All right, Bernard James over at PMI Professionals. If you're considering renting the house that you're living in, if you are interested in getting into the investment game, if that's at all your passion, or maybe not, maybe it's just an interest that you have, you definitely need to give these guys a call, give Bernard a call. And y'all do a meetup for potential investors as well, right?
We do coffee with the real estate pros every Tuesday morning. Of course, we didn't do it last Tuesday because of the holiday, but barring a holiday, every Tuesday morning at Just Love Coffee on Medical Center Parkway in the fountains right there. So come by and see us. It's from 7:30 to 9. And
lots of good brains sitting at those tables when you guys are sitting there having coffee and talking.
That's the other people that come, not us. So. No, we appreciate that though. But no, come out and see us.
It's good stuff. All right, one last invite is if you have an interest in this at all, we're doing a class this evening. We're calling it Real Estate Investing 201. We already had 101. We're doing 201 tonight, 6:00 over at Cedar Glade Brews. 906 Ridgely Road. We've got a panel of some really smart people that'll be there and discussing just the topic of getting into real estate. One of the topics tonight is, how do you get money to do it? How do you start? And that's always a question, right? Like, how do you get the first one, right? That seems to be the hardest question. Yeah, that's the question that people get. You know, it kind of comes back to something that you do. I tell people, if you have the heart for it, buy your first property with keeping it in mind. Buy your first home. When you buy your first home on that FHA, on that conventional loan, VA loan, whatever, buy it like you're going to keep it. That's it. That's great advice. All right. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any real estate questions, give me a shout. If you have property management questions, give him a shout. And if you have lender questions or mortgage questions or refinance questions or anything like that, give our friend Bryan at Primis Mortgage a shout. Talk to you again real soon.